Hi, Robeela. Lovely to meet you, and thank you for giving up some of your time to have a chat today.
Absolute pleasure. Thank you for your time.
You're very welcome. Now, my understanding is that you have actually worked with the team at Resource on Demand on several occasions. So I'm intrigued as to how you, I guess, initially became aware of them and began to work with them. But more importantly, what took you back a second time. Before we get into all that detail, it would be lovely if perhaps you could just share with some of our listeners um, just what's your background, and what I guess was your career path that took you to a point where you were looking for some help from a recruitment company and ended up working with Resource on Demand. So just a bit of background initially.
So many years ago, I used to work in media advertising,
Ah.
um, and this is before I kind of came onto the dark side as such. Um, and the company that I was working for at that time implemented a new CRM system, which was Salesforce.
Salesforce. Yeah.
And they needed people to champion this new CRM, being a large organization, and they needed
Mm.
people to do the training once it was implemented. But even prior to that, they needed people to do the transformation from one system to the other. I mean, obviously, they had their
Got
own
you.
IT department, and the implementation was done by Blue
Mm.
Wolf, if I remember correctly. But it wasn't about that. It was about being champions and being the leaders, being able to kind of like promote the rest of the company to use it, because it's a media company and it wasn't a IT company, and a lot of people there weren't in those days IT supremas or didn't know how to use systems that well. It was an inconvenience to be able to book advertising space where they were used to doing everything on pen and paper. And so that's
Mm.
why they needed people to be able to really promote it and push it, and generally push it in such a way that it would be an asset as opposed to an hindrance, because
Yes.
adoption is really difficult at the best of
Yeah.
times. And
Yeah.
so that's really what they were looking for. And so that's where I came in, and I actually volunteered. I said, hey guys, I really like this and I'd like to volunteer to do this. And as it turned out, I ended up quitting advertising completely and working on the training and adoption of Salesforce across the company globally. And that's
Yeah.
kind of like how Salesforce entered my life. And then once that particular project was over, I then decided that actually I don't really want to go back into advertising anymore. I really
Mm.
like Salesforce and I really like the ecosystem. And so I left that particular company and then went on to find my first job in advertising. Sorry. In Salesforce.
With Salesforce. Still harking back into advertising there almost. So, I mean,
Goodness.
what was it then about the ecosystem that was so attractive?
For me, it was the simplicity, because using in those days, it was a system called Maxim and Business Objects. It was
Mm.
incredibly clunky. It was down quite a lot, and it was not user friendly.
Mm.
And there were several windows and applications just to book one piece of advertising space,
Right.
and it would take you almost, I'd say, 2 hours just to do that. And with Salesforce, it was the journey was a lot simpler.
Yeah.
and visually, it was much nicer to have a look at, and the adoption was really easy. People bought into it a lot better. I
Yeah.
should be selling this to Salesforce, really, shouldn't I?
You sound a great advocate for it. But to be honest, I think
That's
the
what I
people that
think.
are, yeah, whether it's been sort of, someone that's worked with, resource on demand as a candidate or a client, people are so passionate about Salesforce, as a service, as a product, and the whole ecosystem. So I think actually we probably all do. We probably all affiliate us for it, really. So as you began then to build your within sort of the new Salesforce ecosystem,
Mm.
um, what was your experience, I guess, in the early days then of finding a role? Were there other recruitment companies that you'd work with? Just generally, what was your experience?
Yeah, there is one particular recruitment company. I don't know if I'm allowed to mention them here, but they pride themselves to have the largest number of vacancies within Salesforce. And me being this young, fresh chick hot off the block, it was very easy for me to go to them and experience how awful the actual journey was going to be. But at that time, you don't know. At that time, you kind of like think
No.
to yourself, well, you know what, this is what I want to do. This particular recruitment company appears to have quite a lot of jobs, and they're quite
Mm,
aggressive in the way that they pitch you, and
right,
they don't they listen to you, but they're not listening to you, if that makes sense. It
right.
was kind of like,
Mm,
okay, so this is who you are, this is what you can do. We've got 15 jobs that we can put you forward to. And
mm,
they literally put you forward to everything, whether it's suitable for you or not, or even if it's
mm,
relevant to your particular skill set. But because I didn't know, I
mm,
no idea what was involved in
yeah,
this, and it was my first experience almost of recruitment agencies within that sector. I just
yeah.
assumed this is all normal,
You
and
don't know what you don't know sometimes, do you?
absolutely, absolutely. And sometimes bad experience is good experience because you know what to avoid. Do you know what
Yes,
I mean? um,
absolutely.
Yes, and as it turned, it was an entry level role that I was going for as a junior Salesforce administrator. But for me, that was that was really good because it put me into where I wanted to be. It was my first
Yeah,
step into
yeah.
ultimately the beginning of my career. And
Mm,
they sent me to a company, um, that again, I just thought, oh, it's a nice young company. They were very exciting. They sounded very exciting. They got you very excited. The words that they use, um, and they really put you on this pedestal and say, this is the place to be. It was all kind of like rah 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 rah, very kind of like we all work together, and this is an emerging technology and you really want to be part of us, and they sell you the job as opposed to you trying
right.
to sell yourself the job.
So, yeah,
And um, what I didn't appreciate was that they also sent me for interviews for jobs that didn't actually exist. And
right,
it was almost like they sent me for interviews just because they needed to send people for interviews to show this company that they had lots of candidates, when they knew perfectly well that I was never going to get this job because I wasn't suitable for it. But again, it's my first
right.
experience, so I didn't know. So I was spending all this
Yeah.
time doing my background, my prep for it and everything, and then realizing
Mm,
3 weeks that this job actually doesn't even exist. They're just doing it just to show that, aren't we wonderful? Look, all these people that we've got on our books, type
Yeah.
of thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
But anyway, at the end of that process, I was actually offered 2 positions. And I had to make a decision on which one to go for. And my
Mm.
experience of this particular recruitment company is that their advice was which one pays them the greatest commission. And both jobs were from the same company. And I actually found it quite uncomfortable because the 2 consultants were arguing amongst themselves as to who found me first, and they wanted their commission from me, and why am I even considering the other job? So I found that a little bit underhanded, and I found that,
Mm.
quite necessary, as in, hang on, I'm the
Mm.
applicant here. Why am I being involved in this
Mm.
sort of your company politics as such?
Yeah.
Anyway, as it turned out, they sent me to this particular company, which were not necessarily the best for my career. But with hindsight, every job that you have leads you to your next post, and
Yes.
every job that you have
Yeah.
gives you a level of experience that you build and you develop to go on to your next role. Had
Mm.
I chosen the other
Yeah.
company, then I probably would have had a different level of experience, and
Yes.
maybe I would have been at a different area. But I
Mm.
always look back and think that that was meant to be. I learned all this from them,
Yeah.
and they have given a degree of experience to me, which has put me onto my next role. And so no job is ever a bad job. You may have
Yeah.
maybe different experiences, but in
Of
my
course. Yeah.
world, I don't think that any job is ever bad, because you always learn something, even
Mhm.
from things that you don't enjoy doing. That is
Yeah.
an experience as well.
Yes.
So
Absolutely.
yeah. And so that was quite good. They did teach me quite a few things, and I
Mm.
learned quite a lot from that. And as an entry role, I was really grateful for them giving me the opportunity to launch my career as such. So for me, it was
Mm.
quite important.
Yeah.
And then that job was absolutely instrumental for me launching my career. And from there, I then went on to work for another company, which was, the first one was an SI partner. The second one was an end
Right.
customer.
Yeah.
And again, it was from the same recruitment consultancy. So I went back for more punishment. um, but this time I was a little bit more wise, and
Yeah.
I made sure that I was in control. And I didn't
Mhm.
actually go to them. I found the position, and it just happened to be with them. And
Right.
I was very firm and said, I only want to go for this position. Do not put me forward for anything else. This is all I want. And they put me forward for
Right.
it, and I got the job on the first interview. And that was really, really, again, for me, my learning curve there was, it's okay to be firm, and
Mhm.
it's okay to say to a recruitment consultant what you want, and not
Absolutely.
be afraid of saying what you want,
Yeah.
because I think that
Yes.
my experience was that if I tell them that this is the only position that I want, and please don't put me forward for anything else, and they won't put me forward for the particular role that I had applied for.
Mm. Yeah.
Um, and so again, I learned from that as well. And I also learned how to control the number of calls, or the number of people that were calling me as well about the same job. It's
Right.
one job, and
Right.
only one
Yeah.
person can fill it. And there's no point
Yeah.
in going through 15 different recruitment consultants for the same job, because regardless, you're going to one company and you're having one
Yeah.
interview with one
Yeah.
person. So I
Of
learned to be
course.
firm
Absolutely.
about that as well. And
Yeah.
I mean, I had no idea as to how big this particular sector was. I had no idea
Mm,
as to how diverse it was as well. And so the whole thing was a massive learning curve for me,
good.
huge learning curve for me.
Yeah.
And I think for me, it was not being afraid.
Good. And I think it's great to be really clear about, what you want and to take ownership and to, manage the process. Um, so you went in initially at system administrator. So this was kind of like a step up. So what role was this? Of course, you're at the end user side this time. So what was the role, just out of interest?
So my first role was a sysadmin, but it was for an SI
Mm.
partner. And
Yeah,
then it was the same role, but this time it was an end user.
end user. Got yeah.
Yeah. And the nice thing about this is that I think that this is something that I have to be really grateful to Lee about, because he is responsible for my career, and I will hand on heart tell anybody and everybody that is listening, when you find someone that you trust with your career, allow
Mm,
them to give you advice, because that advice will be
mhm.
for your benefit.
Right.
It took me a long time to find Lee. Now I found Lee, I would
Yeah.
not trust anyone else with my career.
Wow, that is I
Um,
mean, that is incredibly powerful to hear that. So how did you come across Lee?
so yeah, I think it was I'm trying to think back, because when you sent me the questions, I thought, how did I meet Lee? And I was racking my brain, how did I meet this person? And just going back to kind of like the end user. So that
Yeah.
one was where I was this is what I was going to say. I remember now, forgive me. I think that when you're working for an SI partner, you're not really working on one org, you're working on several orgs.
Uh-huh.
And sometimes it's in parallel,
Mhm.
and never really, regardless of how long or the volume of work that you're doing, you never really get to know that particular org well. So you do the
Right.
implementation, it's finished, the project is over, thank you very much, goodbye, have a nice life, and you hand it
Yeah.
over to whoever the support team
Yes.
is,
Yeah.
whether it's another company or whether it's their in-house support or their system administrators. um,
Mm.
that's normal. And when and that's something that really got to me when I was at this company. And I thought, you know what, I'm not, because it was my first job, I wanted to know in depth every single org. And they were like, no, you don't, you just want to do it and then move on to the next one. And it was
Yeah.
literally bang, 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 we need to turn
Yeah.
these around, it's volume.
Yeah.
And that to me was foreign. I thought, oh, I'm not really learning very much here apart from the bit that
Right.
I'm doing, and that's it.
Yes.
And when I moved to the end user, I got to know that org inside out. I knew
Inside
every
out.
nuance
Oh,
about
yeah.
it. There wasn't
Yeah.
anything that I did not know. And the buck stopped with me. I was responsible for it. And so
Mm.
I knew every single piece of code. I knew every single, everything, every record. I mean, you can't know
Mhm.
every single record in detail, but you know the process.
No.
You know every single
Yes.
journey.
Yeah.
And and
Yeah.
and that was something that I really enjoyed. But then what happens after a while, and you know the ecosystem as well, so you know everything that goes into it, you know the APIs, you know the third party systems, you know everything.
Yeah.
But
Mm.
what happens after a while is that it gets a bit monotonous.
Yeah.
And yeah, and this is where Lee came in. And I think I applied for a role where do you know what? I think I remember how I met Lee now. I think I called him and said, look, I'm not really looking to move. I'm not in a hurry. And this was when I was at the bank.
Right.
And I said, I just want to see what's around. And I really don't want to
Yeah.
work for a consultancy because I enjoy being the end user. And I think I probably came across as this horrible, horrible, arrogant person that had these requirements, as in, do not go aside these
Yeah.
requirements. Do you know what? I remember exactly how I
Yeah.
met him now. I was at the bank. So this was my second job with the second end user. And
Right.
after 2 years, you become a bit stale where you sort of
Yeah.
think, okay, I know everything about this org. I know all their ecosystems. I know everything. And how can I make my life a little bit more exciting? I know I'll talk to a recruitment consultant and see what they've got available.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
I called Lee and I was
Right.
like, oh no, I don't want to work for a consultancy because I never get to know an org and I want to know the orgs properly. I really want to kind of like understand them better because that's how I can do my job the best. And he
Yeah.
was saying to me, no, Rebeela, you can get to know an org better. You can do your job and you can have the variety that an end user doesn't give you, which is what happens after a
Yes.
couple of years.
Yeah. Of course, and I
And
guess you work with a consultancy that allows you to be a bit more embedded and know more. Consultancies are different, aren't they? So, yeah,
they
go on,
are
you carry
different.
on.
And the variety of
Mhm.
work that you get can give you the fulfillment that you require depending on what project
Yes.
you're on. So you can be on a project for
Yeah,
5 years, you can be on a project for 5 months. And I think that the
yeah,
larger the company, the more flexibility you have in what you want to do and where you want to go. Whereas with an
yeah,
end user, there is only one place to go.
yeah.
And I think Lee opened my eyes there. It took him about 6 months.
Right. Slow burn then.
It was a slow. Yes, yes, we got there. And I'm truly grateful for that. And I
Mm,
wouldn't say that I've never worked for an end user, but I think that the experience that working for a consultancy has given me, particularly large consultancy, is priceless.
mm, yeah,
And it's opened up different avenues. It's improved it's developed my skill set in areas that I wouldn't have even dreamed of excelling in. um, this
interesting.
consultancy, my current consultancy, has managed to get me, or rather I have qualified in 8 certifications in the period of 3
Wow.
months.
Wow, crikey, you've been a busy lady.
That's
You've been a very busy
Salesforce.
lady.
Yeah, that's just Salesforce.
Yeah,
Then they have said, well, hang on, you've got an additional skill set here. And they then encourage me to do Microsoft Azure, which I wouldn't have even thought about ever. It's like, oh
right.
my God, what is Azure?
Mm,
And they have now got me certified in Azure, which is a skill set that can only enhance my experience
completely. Yeah.
and yeah, where I go to. And again, this goes back to Lee because he recognized he didn't. Do you know what? I won't. I stop saying Lee. I'll start saying someone that your recruiter that you trust. So
Mm,
speaking to my audience is, if you have a recruiter that you trust, and a good recruiter will not just look at you as in who you are as a person, will look at your CV, but he won't just stop there. He won't, or they, sorry, I'm being incredibly sexist here, they won't just look at the previous work that you have done. They will
yeah.
look at where it can develop to. They will look at you as an individual, your
Mm,
personality, your characteristics, and then match what's out there at the moment. So that
yeah.
quite often, as individuals, we're very blinkered, as in, this is what I do, this is what I'm good at. Don't you dare take me off this
Yeah.
particular
This is my comfort
train.
zone almost, isn't it?
Yeah,
Yeah.
this is my comfort zone, and don't even think
Mm.
about taking me out of it because I don't know how to do all these things. And a
Mm.
good recruiter will take you out of your little box and say, think outside of your box and look at these opportunities that you didn't even think you were capable of doing, and look what it opens up.
Yeah.
And I think
Yeah.
it's trusting your recruiter. I think it's finding that person first. Once you find that person, never let them go. Just hold on to them. I mean, I was going to say, you're not going to need them every single day of your life. You will need
No.
them periodically
Yes.
when you decide. And what they
Mm.
will also do, if it's a good recruiter, they will call you just to see how you're doing
Mhm.
periodically. And then after a period, that period is subjective to you and to them, they will
Yeah.
then start making recommendations. But they
Mm.
work at your pace. They don't work at their pace. So it's not like the first consultancy that I went to, where it was a numbers game and it was
Yeah.
about volume. This is
Mm.
about you. This is about
Yes.
developing you and finding your niche and then
Yeah.
developing that niche. And I think that there's a degree of satisfaction that they get out of that as well, that they find incredibly rewarding, that they put someone in this incredibly, senior position, or whatever.
Mm.
It doesn't have to be senior, in this position that is their place to be, that fits
Yes.
all kind of like their criteria and their
Yeah.
requirements.
Yeah. And I gather as well that, you know, obviously you know, think very highly of Lee, and am I right in thinking that more recently you've also worked with Shalina, who's part of
Oh
the
yeah,
Reseman team as
yeah,
well?
Sharina is, yeah, yeah, yeah. I
Yeah.
think we get on really well because we are the same people almost. We're the same personality and characteristics. And with Shalina, she I think that it's, for me, it's not Lee, it's not Shalina, it's kind of like, it's resource on
And
demand.
demand, yes, it's the
Yeah.
team, it's the way that they work, I think, isn't it?
Yeah, it's the team, and the team knows me. I know the team, and more importantly, it's that trust element, isn't it? When someone calls you up and say, "Look, I think you should consider this," when you trust that person, you then consider it.
Yeah.
Um, and
Yes.
uh, and again, on my current role, which I'm about to start in 10 days' time, it's the trust element again. So the company that I'm currently with, I would never have dreamed ever in a million years that I would ever be working for a firm like this. And
Right.
Lee has um, excelled every single thing that I wouldn't again have ever imagined that I would reach in my career at such an early stage, and develop to where I
Yeah.
am at the moment. And the company that I'm
Mm.
now going to was kind of like right at the bottom of my list, as in, oh, I wouldn't ever want to work for a company like that for no apparent reason. And here I am.
Well, it's funny actually because there are 2 things that came to mind, and one is, um, actually that concept that I think what what I think described without probably being aware of it is, having a career partner and someone that you get to know, understand you, it takes that time to really listen, but because they know the ecosystem so well and clearly, I guess have a network both in the consulting, the end user side, and so they have a sense of what businesses, what culture would be a good fit for you, that they're almost kind of like able to chart a path, and sometimes a path that you don't necessarily, as you were describing you wouldn't dream of or see for yourself. But over time, as
Mm.
you grow and develop, it's you've got someone who's saying, well, actually, you could reach for this now. You could do this. This would offer you
Yes.
some of what you're describing. And that's incredibly powerful. But to someone to do that and to, I guess, to walk alongside, be a little bit ahead to see things and say at the
Mm.
right time, I think it's time to consider this. That, but to put your trust in someone to do that is very powerful.
It is, yes. And I am that type of person that will always put myself down, as in I always feel that someone else is always more experienced than me. And I always
Right.
am that person that is, oh my God, I don't think I'm really um have the ability or the skill set for the particular
Yeah.
role that sometimes being put forward to. I will
Yeah.
be that person that will always say, oh no, 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 I don't think I'm right for it.
Mm.
And maybe I lack confidence, but I think that Shalina and Lee have brought the best out in me and given me the confidence to be able to do it. And here I am, where I never ever imagined myself to
Thought that you
be.
would
I
be.
never even imagined myself to be an authority, to be speaking even in this particular forum.
Yeah. And so what, I mean, obviously, you've talked about listening and building that trust, but what would you say specifically are, some of the key things for you that makes the way that Lee and Shalina have worked, what makes them stand out, and in such a way that you've trusted with your career fundamentally?
I think maybe it's someone that recognizes your ability
Hmm.
and helping you release and that confidence to believe in yourself.
Yeah.
Because I think that sometimes we're all guilty of not having the ability to believe in ourselves, as in what I was saying earlier on, as in, I don't think I'm capable of doing the roles that
Mhm.
sometimes people put me forward towards.
Yeah.
And I think that that's what they're very good at, is identifying people's skill set and matching it to a particular role. And
Yes.
it's there's no such thing as a generic skill set that you can match to 15 roles. That's not being
No.
bespoke, and
No.
um that's not really making it customized to who you are.
No.
And I think that when you find a role, that role is you. Yes, of course, there could be 15 other people that could do it, but
Mm.
actually those 15 other people have a similar skill set to you. And what Lee does and Shailena do is building that confidence, and not just kind of like selling you the company, it's matching your skill set to that particular role.
Yeah.
um, and then the company almost comes secondary. I mean, the company is really important, absolutely, it's
Of
100% important.
Absolutely. Yes.
I was just going to say, as in believing that you are the right candidate for that particular role, so you can then
Yeah.
have that confidence. And that confidence comes out in many ways. It doesn't just come out in the words that you say, it's the persona,
Yes.
and it's how you present yourself as well.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I think if you've got that real belief that actually this is the right role for me and I am the right role for it, then that is going to get communicated in multiple ways, isn't it? Whether you're on a camera like this or you're face to face.
Mm. One of the rare things that I've noticed about them is that
Mm.
they're not a recruitment consultancy. They're more than that. They actually know the technical side of each job. So they know it's almost like they're the interviewers They know
Yeah.
what's required of the job. They know Salesforce. They know the Salesforce ecosystem, so they can support you.
Absolutely.
And more
Yes.
importantly, they can do like role plays with you, which sometimes is really important. And sometimes when you get a brief come in, they can help you in terms of answering it. So I'm not saying that they're
Yeah.
technical experts or anything like that, but they know what they're doing. So they can support
They do.
you in some of the
Yes.
questions that you have, not just on the recruitment side of things. They can support you on, what Salesforce is
Mm,
about, the emerging technologies, where it's going to, what they've bought. They're really
mm.
on top. They do their research. They're on top of market developments, and that's really
Yeah.
important as well.
Yes. I mean, just I guess building on that, I'm mindful of time, so and shared some brilliant insights without me having to ask you lots of questions, to be honest. But just picking up on that last point, it is an ecosystem, Salesforce, that is evolving rapidly, and so there's a lot for the team to be sort of keeping up with. But I just wonder what do you think, in your experience, perhaps, are some of the things that the resource on demand team do to perhaps help employers sometimes perhaps change their perceptions and ideas of who the right candidate might be for them. Because sometimes, yes, I can imagine perhaps some employers looking at several CVs and making, as often as humans we do make sort of judgments here and there, but actually listen to someone like Lee or Shailene, Nick, and anyone in the team about actually this is why this particular candidate actually is a bigger fit, while some of the thing might not match what clients' initial perception of what they should be looking for is. I don't know if you've got any thoughts around that.
That's a really interesting question. And I would say that it's about relationships and experience.
Mm,
So when we started this conversation, my first experience was with a company that were number fillers, as in interview fillers.
right.
Whereas I think that here with ROD, I think that the trust is not just with their candidates, the trust is with their
Mm,
clients as well. So I would imagine that their clients know that when they put a candidate forward, it will be
mm,
relevant, with
yeah,
the relevant skill set that
yeah.
matches their roles. I've been on the other end where I've done interviews at my existing company where they have sent
Uh-huh.
candidates to me, and that candidate
Right,
ticks every single box. And I
right.
think that, that is the key here, is the
Mm,
trust, is in
yes.
customers, their clients know that they're not going to send someone just to, fill in their slot, as in, oh, you've got
Oh,
5 slots here, we'll take in
yeah,
3 and we'll just put
yeah,
anyone forward. They know
yeah.
that the candidate that they will send will be able to do that job successfully
Mhm.
and will tick all their
Yes.
boxes. I think that's the difference here. And I think that
Yeah.
I don't think they're afraid of not putting people forward so that they don't ruin their reputation. I think that
Mm,
they're very confident in saying that we don't have anybody at the moment, so we're not going to put
yeah.
anyone forward, and maintain
Mm,
their reputation, as opposed to, oh, we'll just put someone forward that we know is completely not suitable for this
yeah,
job. And I think
yeah.
that's what makes them stand out.
Right. That's an interesting point then. So,
Mm.
yes, it's about doing the right thing for the client, doing the right thing for the candidate, and having that confidence to say, right now, there isn't that ideal person for you. Knowing that at some point they will come across that candidate. Um,
When they do, their customers know that it's only a matter of time that they'll find someone. But when they put someone forward, they have the confidence that this will be the suitable candidate for them.
I mean, you've mentioned some really great points, I guess, about, your experience, as a candidate on several occasions, and also clearly from a client perspective. I just wonder if if somebody's listed, let's just say, as someone working in whatever kind of role within that Salesforce ecosystem, and they are wondering what the next me. Maybe they're feeling like you originally felt of, well, I'm okay, I'm quite happy where I am, but I wonder what is going on out there. I wonder what other opportunities might be. What might you say to them if they are hesitant because of past experience of working with a recruitment company?
Sadly, we do have to go through the rough to get to the smooth. And
Mm,
those that don't are very, very fortunate. So hang on to whatever you've got there.
mm,
Don't be afraid to go through lots of consultants, recruitment consultants, until you find the one that you trust, because you will know the one
mm.
that you trust. And
Yeah.
the one that you trust may not be the one that gets you a job in the first instance, but
Mm.
you will know when you find that one consultant.
Yeah.
Um, you will have something inside you will tell you that this is the person that
Mhm.
that is professional
Yeah.
and you trust with your career. Sometimes they may not have that right opportunity for you, but it doesn't mean that they're not that right person for you. You will have that connection, and when you have
Yeah.
that connection, something inside you will tell you that this is the one that will be able to do it for me, and then
Yeah.
stick it out, wait for them to find that role for you. Sometimes, it depends on your situation. If you need to move on, then that's okay.
Mm.
But find that one person and then just remain in contact with that one person, and they will guide you through your career. You'll know it's the right person because they will contact you throughout the year to see how you're getting along.
And I guess sometimes for some people, it can be disheartening when they haven't quite found that right person. So, from your experience, if someone wants to fast track that painful process, then able to trust someone like Lee, Teresa, any of the ROD team, um, you know, they are people who, I guess from what you're saying, who would listen to you, and if they can't find you the right role right now, they will tell you in the same way that they would tell an employer that we can't find the right candidate right now. Am I right in making that assumption? Because I hate making assumptions.
And absolutely no, but I think we're all kind of like wary of that.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Do you know what? I think that I have just had a moment of realization. I completely got it wrong how I met Rod. It was through a recommendation.
Ah,
Um,
okay.
yes, yes,
It's
yes.
always
Someone
very
recommended
powerful
me.
when someone
Yeah.
recommends and makes an introduction. Fantastic.
And she has the same values as I do. She
Yeah.
doesn't trust anybody else with her career other than Lee. So Lee's got a
Right.
lot to be responsible for.
It's got broad shoulders, isn't it? And also a great team as well.
He
Having
does, yeah.
chatted with Shirley and quite a few of the
Mm.
of the wider team as well, and of course Teresa.
Sorry, I was just going to say, when I talk about Lee, I talk about the company.
Yes,
Shailene, they're all, for me, the same company.
the same.
They all provide the same service. I know I can reach out to them and they'll come back to me almost immediately.
Oh, well, that's great to hear. Um, so really, that's all that we have to time to chat through today. Which it just really leads me to say, huge congratulations, and have a great first day as you
Thank you.
start your new role shortly. And
Thank you.
and I'm sure this is just kind of like the next stage in an ongoing career for you in this amazing ecosystem. So good luck with it, Robeela, and thank
Thank
you
you.
for your time.
Thank you. Have a good day. Bye, Sharon.
You too. Bye bye
Thank you.
now.